Hi, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, and today I have from Rogue the Oregon Single Malt Whiskey. 40% ABV. This is finally the 2-year-old version. I know there was a 3-month-old version, and many people criticized it, called it some of the worst whiskey they've ever had. This is the 2-year-old. Amazing that they did a 90-day or even a 3-month-old version of this. I really have the conspiracy theory that Rogue is not really primarily interested in making good whiskey. They're interested in getting whiskey barrels for their ale that they're trying to age in used whiskey barrels. All right, so they have a proprietary yeast, which is called Pac-Man. This is 100% Rogue Farm Risk trademark. Barley malt, whatever a trademark belongs to a barley, I'm not really sure. Maybe if you know, write it in the commentaries. And this is 100% grain to glass in Oregon. Yay, Newport, Oregon. So they're famous for their ale and their beer. Rogue, especially the Dead Guy ale. 1988, they started up their brewery, basically the first craft brewery in the States. And they actually now have their own cooperage. Rolling Thunder with Nate Lindquist. So, let's see what the nose says. Oh, much better than the Rogue Dead Guy whiskey. This actually smells like a halfway decent single malt. Now, there are not that many single malt whiskeys in the States, by the way. Now, you have a bourbon, which is always 51% corn. You have rye whiskeys, which means 51% rye. And then you have this thing called a single malt. Single malt is what we know basically from Scotland, maybe also from Ireland, and it means 100% barley. Malted barley. So they take barley, they put a little bit of water on it, they put a little bit of heat to it, and they have a little bit of light, and so it starts to germinate. They stop the germination process with heat, and they use that malted barley in the mash to have more enzymes, to have more sugar, to have more taste. And I love a good single malt. Now, there have not been very many great American single malts. America's as in North American. The Glen Breton, I've tried many of those. I tried the 12 and the 14 and the 17 and the 19. And they're like, yeah, okay, not worth $100 they're asking for. In Westland and Washington, they're starting off making some great single malts. In Texas, they have some great or interesting single malts. And now we have an Oregon single malt, finally. Now, the Americans, the U.S. really needs to want to someday define the category single malt. It's not yet defined. I beg that the industry actually does this sometime soon so that we have the real category of American single malt. So this is an Oregon single malt, and we also have the 2 years of the ocean air flowing around the barrels in Newport, Oregon, and maybe it also influences the taste I have here. So let's go in. Cut. Ew. The whole time it's a nice, light, creamy, almost fruity type of single malt. I could have, that taste, that aftertaste is really not mine. Really not something I like. The whole time I could have confused it for a Irish whiskey. Light, a little bit of fruit, nothing spectacular in there. And then towards that end, it just dips down for me, that aftertaste. It's like having a little bit of stale beer in your mouth. I have no idea where this comes from. It could be the yeast. It could be the barley. It could be that ocean air. It could be the barrels they're using. I don't know. Interesting thing. I assume that a single malt from Oregon has to use a fresh barrel. But since there is no category for single malt, do they really use a new barrel? The only information I found is that they do not use their new barrels from the cooperage because that started before this was actually, the cooperage started after this was actually distilled 2 years ago. That's an idea. Did they maybe, I don't think so. Did they reuse a whiskey beer barrel? I sure do not hope so. Let's just assume they're using new barrels, all right? And the nose is actually quite nice. It's not a B, it's not an A, it's a C+. And everything's okay in the mouth until you swallow. And then this taste kicks in. This beer yeast. And the Pac-Man yeast is actually a beer yeast. And it's just really, really not something I like. Sorry. It's going to stick with a C to a C-. Now, it'd be very, very interesting to have a challenge, a blind tasting of maybe 3 or 4 different American single malts. A young category, a growing category, the category to watch in the future. There's going to be a lot happening in the single malt category in America, and I'm very, very interested to try more of these. Okay, WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American in Germany, tasting rare and exotic whiskeys. I have the 2-year-old. I haven't seen a video of the 2-year-old yet. Rogue Oregon Single Malt. Thank you for watching. Please like, please subscribe, please tell others about this weird guy tasting whiskeys you probably never get your hands on. Now, this is actually the possibility that you might one day actually be able to have this. They'll make more and more of this as well. And also, don't forget, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, I publish my videos online. See you soon. Bye-bye.